So we heard yesterday that Nicholas Spence's academic background was in plant virology, and today we'll hear from one of the world's experts on plant pathogenic fungi. Nick's research is on Magnaportha oryzae and other fungi, and he will tell you, I think, a little bit about how he has been at the leading edge of both cell and molecular disease work, as well as dealing with the impact in societal issues globally. He is now the executive director of the Sainsbury Lab in Norwich. Previously, he was the University of Exeter Deputy Vice Chancellor. He is a Fellow of the Royal Society and a plant science advisor to the Gatsby Foundation. So over to you, Nick, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, Celia. Can everyone hear me okay? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. And I hope, have you got my slideshow up or have you got my notes? I don't know which one you've got up. Hopefully the slideshow.
Slideshow, I think. Yep.
Brilliant. Okay. Great. Well, I'm here really representing Gatsby, who have helped to sponsor this this summit, and I've been listening into most sessions. Actually, I've been there through most of the last 3 days, and it's just been an exceptionally enriching and vibrant event. I've really enjoyed it, and I think you should all be very proud of the way you've contributed to it. It's been a fantastic event. What I'm going to do is tell you in the next 10 minutes or so a little bit about Gatsby's commitment to plant sciences, and then some reflections on things that I think are important, I guess, over the last few days, what I've heard you talking about. So first of all, Gatsby has a great commitment to plant sciences. It's one of its main areas of engagement. It funds work across neuroscience education, Africa, public policy, and the arts as well. This is one of David Sainsbury's, the Sainsbury family charities. But in plant sciences, it really focuses on creating centers of excellence in research, funding great research, inspiring everyone from school children through to undergrads and postgraduates and networking plant scientists. And it contributes around £20 million a year into plant sciences in the UK. Its investments include the Sainsbury Laboratory in Norwich, where I'm very privileged to be the director of, the Sainsbury Laboratory at Cambridge University. It also funds Sainsbury PhD studentships, and it funds the Science and Plants for Schools program. So those are our sort of program highlights. And it, as well as in the plant health area, I should stress really, the Sainsbury Laboratory is focused entirely on plant health. Its remit is to look at plant microbe interactions, to understand plant immunity, to understand how pathogens cause disease. And one of the other Sainsbury vehicles for this is a sort of sister institution called the Two Blades Foundation. Now, two participants here, Shona and Helen, work in the Two Blades Foundation. But the Two Blades Foundation, it really exists. Its mission is to help deliver the outcomes of discovery research in plantomicrobial sciences into solutions for plant disease. So genetic solutions for plant disease, which help humanity. And the way that name comes from, Two Blades, is actually a quote from Gulliver's Travels. So David Sainsbury was very taken with, and Roger Friedman, not only with literary influences from The Great Gatsby, but also from Gulliver's Travels. So this quotation that whoever could make 2 ears of corn or 2 blades of grass to grow upon a spot of ground where only one grew before would deserve better of mankind and do more essential service to his country than the whole race of politicians put together. So what it's really saying is that Two Blades wants to contribute to the betterment of humanity by providing solutions to crop diseases using new technology, but it's got a great commitment to sustainability and smallholder farming communities. So it retains all of its intellectual property for deployment across the developing world, whilst engaging commercially with large organizations to develop that technology. And those highlight really Gatsby's commitment to using our understanding of plant disease for the betterment of mankind. So how does it contribute to developing future leaders? Well, it always encourages its scientists to do high risk, high reward science, to be adventurous. and to lead by example, take risks in their science. Science above all should be about that. It should be about trying to see beyond the horizon, to try and think about the way to tackle very complex problems and solve them, and in ways that we can understand and describe. The Plant Science Network provides a really inclusive forum that goes all the way from undergraduate to professor. And Gatsby also understands that within the scientific endeavor, we are hugely indebted and reliant on technicians. So it has a technician commitment which runs across the UK to promote the career development and appreciation of technicians in the workplace. So those are the things that Gatsby does, and I think you've got a glimpse of some of that, but they were very proud to sponsor this event. So how can you make a difference then? Well, first of all, I think it's really important to remember the scale of the challenge that we face as humanity. And I think we've certainly, in listening to the discussions, I can get a sense that is one of the things that motivates many of the people who are here, is how can we use our understanding of plant health to actually make things better for humanity. I think the other key thing is to be bold about the science you want to do. Think about what can actually be achieved, particularly over the next 20, 30 years, in which you're going to carve out your careers. Be imaginative about those solutions to complex problems, and take advantage of what you've learned here. The scale of the problem, of course, is vast, and I'm just going to show a couple of slides just to illustrate that. Much of this, of course, you will know already, but there was a millennium goal to halve the prevalence of undernourishment by 2015, and although we've made progress, we still haven't achieved it. There's still 870 million people who are chronically undernourished throughout the world. About 30% of the population, of the world population, have micronutrient deficiencies. And this isn't just in the developing world. There's about 11% of US households are food insecure, and around 6% almost of UK population are food insecure. And that problem has got much worse through the pandemic. And indeed, one of the really key aims of the COVAX vaccination program across the world is going to be to prevent the world being plunged into an even deeper food insecurity problem. So I think it's always worth it for all of us as plant health professionals to think about the fact that this really, really matters. And you've heard some of that from Nicola in her talk about her job as the chief plant health scientist in the UK. So you've heard about that, particularly in the national and the international context, but I think we need to think about it also. You need to think about it in the global context. This matters hugely. Your work will matter hugely. And what we face is a really huge problem. And again, most of you will be aware of this, but it's really quite stark. The human population will reach close to 10 billion by 2050. That means 60% more food, 35% more fresh water, 60% more energy, less agricultural land, greater urbanization, biofuels, and of course climate change above everything else. So the increase of 2.3 billion people in the next 35 years or so is greater than the entire current populations of China, the US, and Brazil combined. It's a huge number of people, and we need to grow more food in the next 35 years than we've grown in the last 10,000 years. So the scale of what we need to do is really huge. And in Africa in particular, where population growth will be its greatest, that's a 260% increase in agricultural productivity that's going to be required. So I think all of us should always have this on our mind, that what we're doing actually can make a huge difference and needs to make a huge difference to where the world is. When you actually see a plant disease in the field, it's actually a very sobering experience, even for someone who is a sort of old hand like me, who's been studying plant diseases for many, many years. When I went to Bangladesh in early 2019, it's one of the most devastating things I've ever seen. It was a wheat blast outbreak in Mirpur in Bangladesh, a very, very poor region of the world, where there was absolute devastation. In 2016, when this disease first arrived in Bangladesh, it destroyed 15,000 hectares, around 16% of the cultivated area of wheat in Bangladesh. So it's caused a huge amount of difficulties, and it's spreading rapidly. It's spread into Bengal in India. And wheat blast has now been reported in Zambia, and most recently again in Ethiopia, even since this in late 2020. So this disease is just one of the diseases that's spreading around the world at an alarming rate through the forces of globalization and indeed climate change. So we need to rapidly deal with plant health issues like wheat blast, but also understand that in the long term, we have to come up with durable solutions, long-term solutions to plant diseases. And here's where I think we need to be bold about our science, because when we look at plant diseases, so this is another blast disease, this is rice blast, we're now beginning to be able to get a holistic understanding of these diseases. And I just want to sort of impress upon you quite where the science is going, because our advances in live cell imaging mean that those leaves that you just looked at, we can actually image those and we can see how a fungal pathogen overcomes plant defenses. It absolutely overwhelms plant immunity under the conditions where it will cause disease. And this just illustrates over a 16-hour time point, 16-hour period, how a fungal pathogen, Magnaportha oryzae, can completely overwhelm the plant host by suppression of immunity. And we're beginning to understand those processes. We're beginning to understand the effector repertoires that are involved in that, and we're beginning to understand the biology of how they're regulated and indeed how they're perceived by plants. And in very recent times, we're beginning to have a structural understanding now of plant immunity. So for the first time, we actually are beginning to understand the structures of the immune receptors that are able to perceive effectors produced by pathogens and lead to immunity. And this is just one example. This is the ZAR1 resistosome, which when it becomes activated forms this very large structure which interacts with the plant plasma membrane, leading ultimately to hypersensitive cell death. Now, why am I showing you this? Well, it's because we're at the frontier of, I think, of another huge advance in plant microbe interactions, because our understanding of the structural basis of immunity, our understanding at a holistic level of the progression of plant diseases is coming along at the same time as big breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. We know in a much hyped recent report about how AlphaFold, the DeepMind's algorithm, can actually begin to understand the way in which proteins actually fold. One has to just imagine what the future will be like. So go forward 10, 15, 20 years and think about the fact that we will be able to have a predictive understanding of plant immunity. We'll be able to understand effector immune receptor interactions at a level where we can actually come up with predictive means of manipulating plant immunity. And not only will we do this, but we have to do it, because this is probably the only way in which we're going to really sustainably, durably protect ourselves from plant diseases over the longer term. So what I want to leave you with is just these few thoughts. This is an incredibly important time to be working as a plant health professional, whether you're involved in research, whether you're involved in diagnosis, whether you're involved in policy, whatever facet of plant health that you're involved with, you have an extraordinarily important contribution to make, because work that you carry out over the next 35 years will be pivotal to the future of humanity. And I don't say those words lightly. It sounds like hyperbole, but it really, really isn't. Your role will make a difference. We have to develop high-yielding, fossil fuel-free agriculture, because if we don't, we won't actually escape and respond to the climate emergency. These are imperatives, global imperatives. So coming up with creative, disruptive solutions will be necessary. Normal thinking is not going to be enough. And one of the things that's really inspired me this week is listening to the fact that you're thinking like this. You're thinking about being disruptive and creative and not undergoing normal thinking. And just at the end, to give you an example, I think of what I took from your discussions and taking advantage of what you've learned here. I'm involved in a project in sub-Saharan Africa where we're trying to solve the rice blast problem by carrying out some plant breeding to stack multiple resistance specificities into locally adapted rice cultivars. And there's some hard science in there. There's some science that involves actually introgressing all of those resistance genes into rice cultivars. But actually, that's not the big challenge. The biggest challenge are the types of challenges that you've been talking about actually in this forum. They are about how are we going to build an ongoing locally driven pathogen surveillance system in sub-Saharan Africa across numerous countries. How are we going to develop a network of trained professionals, develop those durable disease-resistant rice cultivars, but have a culture of farmer and consumer engagement to make sure that we actually get take-up of those new technologies. And actually, a very large element of the research that we do, the research project, is associated with those. So meeting these millennial goals actually requires that level of interaction. And it reminds me of what we've been hearing about here, because actually, of course, what this is involved is the art of collaborative networking. And so many of the things that you've talked about, curiosity, coordination, commitment, tenacity, all of those things have been necessary to actually make that project work. And just to give you another example, this is also, of course, required a culture of equity, diversity, justice, and inclusion, because without that, we wouldn't be able to do any of the things that we're trying to do and that's just based on my own limited experience of working in the developing world in plant health. So I'll leave you with that, and I salute you because you are our future leaders, and I wish you all the very best of luck. And I really hope you've enjoyed the last few days. I'm sure you have, and good luck to all of you in your future careers. And I hope you all do stay in touch as a network, because you're a very powerful group. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. That's absolutely perfect. We did say that we would take a couple of questions if there are, but I think we will just keep it to 2 questions. If anybody would like to put them in the chat, please. Is that one from Dana, or was that to, how do we start? We all have great ideas of where to start, but how?
Yeah, well, I absolutely take that on board, Dana, about that. And it's great to see you, by the way. I should just because we used to be in the same lab together, Dana, right, back in Exeter. I would say that we have to convince, particularly I think UKRI, to take greater risks in the science that it funds. Actually, I think that we're pushing at a somewhat open door there, because I know that the new chief executive of UKRI thinks very much along those lines. So I think that that we have to help them adopt a higher risk strategy to funding science, to actually fund future leaders. And there are many initiatives, as you've heard from Debbie, that BBS or CE are actually doing that. So I think those are one of the things that we have to do. But actually, I think you as a group are a pretty powerful group. So I think actually, if you actually lobby collectively, you will have an influence. And I think you're on UKRI's radar already. So I think that those are the areas that we really need to be impressing upon research funders, that we do need to take more risks. We do need to actually think about things in a much more creative way than simply funding the same types of approaches that have sort of led us to where we are now. So I would just encourage you to do that, and always encourage you, even within your existing projects, to be as creative as possible and think about the way in which you can progress those ideas in the very best possible way. But I guess first and foremost, it's about taking it is about persuading funders to actually think more creatively about this. The ERC has been a great initiative in that direction. The UKRI Future Leaders Fellows programs are the same. Actually, the new government agency ARIA is actually also in that space too. So I think there are some reasons to be optimistic about that.
Thank you. Okay, you know, I think this whole event has emphasized the scale. We all knew the scale of things, and I think as we come to the closing words, it's an acknowledgement of how many of us share those feelings about the scale of things, and it's good to have some pointers there from Nick as to how we might take those forward. So show of hands again for Nick, please, for his very good performance. Thank you, everyone. Now, so it has come to the closing words, and in a moment I'll call on Mark Downes, the Chief CEO of the RSB, but I just want to, and he'll close the session. You'll be hearing from the RSB as to how you can let your own personal details be known as to, I want to stay part of this. You have to do that. You have to let them know, yes, I give you my permission to use my name. So that will be coming in an email, I think, next week. I think you'll find something in the chat, hopefully, indeed it has already, from Karen, as to how you can make that contact already. So we're very keen that you'll leave this with your momentum and your enthusiasm to do something, and you can do that by letting them know. We will, after Mark has given us a few closing words, we'll just keep the room open so you can do a bit of chatting to everybody if you want to. But I just want to give my own personal thanks to you all and a couple of reflections. I'm over the moon with how wonderfully well this has worked. I didn't have any doubt that it could work, but it did need a lot of effort from a lot of people to bring it to fruition. And I especially want to say thanks to Beth and Karen and John, who have been seamlessly transporting us from one room to the other. So please, they do a fantastic job in the background. Huge thanks to them. It wouldn't have worked so smoothly otherwise. And I think, just following the bold message from Nick, it actually took some while to persuade a lot of people to do this event, and that's understandable. All of you, if you have good, bold ideas, you can't expect people to see your vision straight away, even if they want to support you. There's a need for patience and tolerance to work with them to get your idea through. And I would encourage all of you just to continue that patience and tolerance. If you believe in your idea that it will lead to somewhere, then just stick with it and be patient. And that it is actually what will make you a leader, because you will succeed in what you manage to get to fruition. So I do want to thank you, Gatsby, because without their support to me, this would not have happened. So huge thanks to them. And three thoughts just to leave you on. The visuals from Tim and Jenny they're available to you now. You can use them now. We will consider how they will get packaged up and published in some way. It's really important, as you use them, to remember they are your words and they are not an instruction. If you don't use those by passing on to other people to consider, do you agree with this? And these words came from this collective group, then they will have no meaning at all. So it is really important that you share what has come out of this summit with other people, with that mindset that says, this is what we collectively thought. Do you agree with us? And I really do hope, I actually have no doubt that you will continue connecting with each other. So that is fabulous. My last thing to say is, take some comfort in the passion and humanity that is shown by everybody here, because I certainly do. And I really wish you all the very best with what you do. So now I would like to hand over to Mark Downes, who's the CEO of the RSB. There we go, Mark.
Great. Thank you very much. So you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, super. Thank you. I won't keep you too long, and thanks very much for the opportunity just to say a few words to you. I mean, first of all, I just want to say how wonderful it is to see such fantastic enthusiasm. I mean, listening to the keynotes at the end here, there's a real sense of that you want to do something collectively, and the fact that you've committed the time to this, not just for today, but the conversation, the build up to it, and you're so enthusiastic to do things going forward is a great thing to see. We have to work together, you know, if we don't do that, I don't think we'll get anywhere. The organisers for today have been thanked in a number of ways. I just want to reiterate my thanks to them, and I think in the chat in a minute you'll have a few comments coming through from the organisers, so do look out for that. But I thought Nick's, you know, summary keynote at the end there was really very, very pertinent. I mean, he set out quite clearly some of the challenges we face, and perhaps, you know, I can sum it up by saying that if you look at any of the global challenges we all face now, whether it is food security or biodiversity loss, right the way through to the One Health agenda, whatever it is, plant science is absolutely critical, and plant health is a central plank to that. And you all know that, and we at the RSB know that. And I, for one, try to take every opportunity to reiterate that to people. But what we have to do collectively is make sure policymakers, politicians really, really understand how important it is and why it's important. Not just the research, but the skills we need, the people like you, using yourselves as role models to get people into this area of work. Because as Nick said, we absolutely have to do this. And RSB's been trying to do, you know, we've been trying to do our bit. We've had 2 reports in 2014 and 2019 on the value and importance of plant science, you know, driven by you in the community. We've had the plant health register, which Celia has talked to you about already, to try and support the professionalisation of the sector and ongoing professional development. We do work around curriculum support, making sure that that's, you know, fully integrated plant science is there. We have a specialist newsletter, we've got a specialist Twitter account and so on. And we can take the stuff that's come out of today and build on it to play our part. But we're not going to change the agenda by ourselves. It has to be collectively. We have to work together, which is why these sorts of networks are so important. And let's aim high, you know, really, really high. At the moment, the biomedical community is riding very high for perhaps the wrong reasons, but, you know, nonetheless they are, because of the huge value they've brought to the current situation and the challenges we've all faced. When you see that transposed into the other global challenges that we've all been talking about and you all know about, and they become much higher up the public agenda, you know, let's use that to go where the biomedical community have gone, to make sure plant science is really, really up there. It should be a real ambition for us to see plant science funding and status be right at the top of the agenda. And I for one, certainly try to say that whenever I get the opportunity. So congratulations on a great event. I really hope that this is just part of the ongoing conversation, that you'll be happy to take part in stuff moving forward. And it doesn't happen, of course, as Celia has said, without individuals and organisation support. And a big thank you to the sponsors who are all listed on the microsite. So a big thank you to them, especially, of course, Gatsby. You know, we've already mentioned Tim and Jenny. Thank you very much to both of you. And I just wanted to reiterate my thanks to Celia and to Charles and to Geraint for, you know, your input into the whole process. I haven't done anything. I've just been looking what's been going on and thinking that's great. Also, of course, to John and Beth and Karen from the RSB for their help. So I hope we'll still see each other again. I think anyone who can spend 3 days with 4-hour sessions on Zoom calls is going to make a difference, because that takes stamina and commitment. So I think a big congratulations for that. Thanks very much, and I hope you can stay on for the networking afterwards, and I'll see you soon. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the chance to speak to you.